Hey guys, it's Gamer here. I'm still feeling a little under the weather like I was in my past few videos, but I am starting to get a little bit better. I'm still attempting to keep my upload schedule of at least one video a day up, but I may need to take a break here in a little bit to feel a little better. I did want to get this video up as quickly as I could, however, these are my opinions and thoughts on the Division 2 beta. I have a few bullet points that I want to go across here. So starting off, we have the single player. I did not get to play very much of single player due to the fact that me and my friend Brian tried to play it together as much as we could cooperatively. But from what I could see, this is going to be a much more story-driven game as opposed to the last game, which was very um, interpretive. There wasn't very many cutscenes or things like that. Whereas in this game, there's going to be a lot more cutscenes and a lot more of an actual story. The last game didn't pick up until the LMB started invading New York. There wasn't very much story with the cleaners or just the base civilians or even the Rikers. Um, so it looks like the single player in this game will be much more entertaining. However, when me and my friend Brian, or even me and my father, played cooperatively, the story was not even an issue because the gameplay was so entertaining. Now, it felt very Division 1-esque. However, there were not that many instances where we were able to rush enemies and just tank damage in order to take out certain annoying enemy types, as in the first game. This game is very cover and tactics based, which I like a lot better. You actually have to change out your armor plate as opposed to simply injecting your leg with a stim shot, which you were able to do while running in the last game. So you'd be able to run up to an enemy, inject a stim shot, and then drop a mag into them. Whereas in this game, you now have to slowly move your way up from cover, watch for flanking enemies, which the AI now does at a higher level, and make sure that your armor plate doesn't get destroyed and you have to put in a new one. Since the armor was added, there was a few other skills that I tried out, such as the drone that was able to actually heal your armor, and you were able to send onto your allies to heal their armor as well. Brian was actually able to get a good bit more XP from me doing that, simply helping him gain armor while rushing towards enemies slightly quicker than I. And he was actually at level 6 when I was at level 5. Which is fine and all. It was just something interesting that I found. I think that there might need to be a little bit more XP per kill if you are helped by a drone. The drone operator needs to get XP per kill as well. Another thing I wanted to touch on is the Dark Zone. If you didn't already see my video on that, it seems to be a lot more of the same Dark Zone that we know and love or hate, depending on how you liked the Dark Zone. However, one thing has been changed that is huge, in my opinion, and that is normalization. All gear across all types will now be normalized whenever you enter the Dark Zone. Basically, what this means is that whenever you go into the Dark Zone, there will be equal stats across all players and all gear, making it skill-based combat whenever you're fighting against a rogue or non-rogue agent, if you're rogue, and not weapon-based. I apologize. I'm, like I said, still a little under the weather. Which is an immense improvement from the last game where you could go into the higher level Dark Zones and get dropped by players with ridiculous gear sets and ridiculous weapons that they were able to find because they were lucky. Another thing I want to mention, the graphics in this game. It is immensely, immensely impressive, and I absolutely love the way that this game looks. It's now running on the Snowdrop engine. It's no longer running on the same engine as the last game, and that shows. It doesn't look the same. There's not nearly as many oranges and grays and yellows. This game is very green, very clean, very streamlined for the newer player. However, there is a few issues that I have with this menu, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. For example, there was this one scene right here where I was looking down the scope to fire at an enemy in this Dark Zone mission, and it occurred to me just how different from the first game this looks. This scope outline, yeah, this may look the same, but what I'm looking at through the scope, that makes me feel like this is a second game as opposed to just a DLC. Now, like I said, the other thing that I wanted to touch on was, of course, the actual menu. And I feel like some things that are explained in the menu are good and they need to keep it. However, I feel like some things need to be added and explained further. For example, you have all of these items that you're able to pick up throughout the game. And as of right now, I have absolutely no idea what these items are for. Now, I understand that you're able to sell them for a currency, but is that all they're for? And if so, why have all of this junk in your inventory that doesn't do anything? I always hate when games do this. When you can pick up, for example, right here, you can pick up a kid's sock and sell the kid's sock for 10 credits. First of all, who would want to buy a kid's sock? And second of all, why am I picking up a kid's sock to sell it? I don't know. Something that personally annoys me, but I guess that they can put it in if they want to. It's not going to harm anything. However, one thing that does harm everyone is right here you can see that gear sets are back, and they start at the base game now as opposed to starting at end game. In the first game, gear sets were things such as Reclaimer, which allowed you to heal your allies better, or pop your med bag so that it would explode and give all of your allies higher health so that they could push the enemy easier. Striker, which allowed you to drop people easier if you were more accurate, or Nomad, which gave you more health as you fought by yourself. Now, all of these were pretty powerful in the first game if you understood how gear sets work. The base game did not have a tutorial explaining how gear sets work. Now, this is an issue in this game because gear sets now start off earlier in the game. You can start off with Down and Harding, as you can see here, or any other gear sets which are shown by a symbol in the background of the gear explaining what gear set it is from. Now, I understood how gear sets work, so this made me very happy to see them return. However, there was not a single tutorial explaining how the new gear sets worked to new players. Brian, for example, would run across a new armor piece, see that it had a higher armor than his current piece, and immediately equip it, as opposed to someone like me who understood that running 3 pieces of Downing and Harding gave me extra rifle damage, extra critical hit chance, and extra critical hit damage, making it so that I would keep my eye out for more Down and Harding gear as opposed to just base gear. Brian was able to do the same amount of damage as me, however, I needed to keep my drone on him in order to keep him alive, and he wasn't able to keep up with my critical hit chance because these gear sets were not explained. If they want to get new players into the game, they have to explain all the mechanics to them in the tutorial. Now, I understand this was just a beta, but we did play the first few missions and they weren't explained at any point. Something as small as a pop-up window right next to where the gear is would help explain what the gear sets did. Now, once we got into the end game, things started to look a little more interesting. For example, now you have specialized weapons for each class. For example, I had the sniper class, which was my favorite, the grenadier, which was able to shoot grenades out of a grenade launcher as his fourth weapon, and the crossbow user, which the grenadier and crossbow users both seemed immensely underpowered compared to the sniper. The sniper was able to fire a 50 cal rifle that went through walls and soft cover in order to hurt enemies. Didn't do that much damage to heavily armored targets, but everyone else died in basically one hit. Ammo was immensely plentiful for this sniper, and I believe that the way you could actually get ammo was by getting headshots with marksman and sniper rifles, which is something that my dad noticed. If that's true, what the heck do you do to get bonus ammo for your grenadier and crossbow? And if you can get bonus ammo for your grenadier and crossbow by doing certain things, what the heck would they be? Getting kills with bows and arrows, because bows and arrows aren't in the game. Getting grenade kills, because if so, certain classes only have 1 or 2 grenades when you run them. For example, the specialization for sniper allows you to have a flashbang, but you can only carry one at a time because of how powerful the range on your flashbang is. So things like that may need to be explained a little more again, in my opinion. You have to understand that although this is a sequel, not everyone has played the first game, and in fact, probably 90% of the player base coming to this game hasn't played the first game. And although I'm sad to say it, people don't understand things by just reading. They need to be taught how it all works. Now, another thing that I of course need to mention is the bugs that were riddled throughout the beta. Now, they were not as prominent as one would assume. You could probably play through the base beta and one endgame mission and not encounter any bugs except a few graphical ones. For example, I ran into a couple graphical ones, but I am, of course, running an older FX series processor with a 970, so I have a bit of a bottleneck going on, and there is a few issues graphically for me. My dad and Brian did not say that they had any serious graphical issues, so that of course may just be my PC. I was of course running this game at medium settings, best that it could be while I was recording, and if you haven't seen my other recordings, things look pretty good. My first recording is a little bit choppy, but I think that's because so many players were playing at once that the game itself was choppy when I was playing through it. However, that does not touch on the glitches. The T or Y pose, I don't care what you want to call it, glitch that we had right here happened constantly. I had it happen at least 2 or 3 times. Brian had it happen up to 6 times, and my father had it happen even more since he played the game even more than me and Brian combined. The other issue that I ran across that I don't know if anyone saw is the dogs in the end game would freeze up and no longer explode. Now, this was a big deal because the dogs, when they exploded, would EMP everyone in the area, disabling your and their abilities. And if the dog doesn't explode, well, you can't really account for there being an EMP explosion enabled to rush an enemy if there isn't any because the dog has frozen. Another issue that my father had, I'll have the footage right here, he was actually running the endgame mission on the hardest difficulty by himself with full armor and full health, and he gets killed instantly. It says here that he got killed by the rusher, and the only rusher there was the one to his left that he killed moments ago. The drones in the background, he killed the handler, so they fell to the ground, so I don't understand what killed him here. We could not figure it out. If you can see what killed him, feel free to post it in the comments below, but I feel like that's something that needs to be addressed as well. Another glitch that Brian found on the subreddit was that someone found a pistol in the Dark Zone that did enough damage to players to drop all players and all NPCs in one hit. That is broken, and that needs to be fixed. Whether or not it was fixed at the end of the beta, I'm not 100% sure, but I do know that it lasted for at least 3 days, which is unacceptable. Now, another glitch that we had was Brian actually crashed in one of my previous videos. You can see when we were running the endgame mission, and was sent all the way back to the start of the mission when he spawned back in. Not a huge issue since the game shouldn't really have to save where you are in a mission if you're in someone else's game anyways. However, the doors behind me on Jefferson City Trade Center above the elevator closed to Brian, and he was not able to make it through. Um, this was a serious issue because I then had to stop because I couldn't get any further in the mission since it was an endgame mission and was slightly difficult and I needed some help. Um, Now, a little later on, I was playing again with Brian, my dad, and me. I don't have any footage of this, but he crashed again and was sent back to the start of the mission again. And when he got back to these doors, the doors were again open. So he did not have an issue there. So whether or not that was patched, good, bad, I don't care, but it was patched. I did not have any game crashes, so whether or not that was limited to Brian's PC or possibly an issue of where he took cover, I do not know, but I do know that me and my father had almost no crashes. I believe I had one, and my father had 3, and my father, like I said, played more than me and Brian combined. Now, the other thing I want to mention real quick, if you're still hanging around,
Another one before that.
That's
It's
fine.
down there, disable on call.
Yeah.
We're gonna fix that for open beta.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it's annoying.
Yeah.
We're gonna fix that for open beta.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it's annoying.
Yeah.
We're gonna fix that for open beta.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it's annoying.
if you can't hear it clearly, he is saying that there's going to be an open beta so that all of you who haven't played the private beta will be able to try this game once they have fixed a few features. And look what got announced not 2 days later. Now, that is all I have to say on the private beta right now. If you guys would like to join me in the open beta when it starts out, go ahead and leave a comment, message me on Twitter, Steam, or anything else that may be linked. If you found it interesting, go ahead and leave a like. If you disliked the video for any reason, go ahead and leave a dislike and comment down below what issues you had. This has been The Gamer. I thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you in the next one.